Imagine being cast out by your tribe, betrayed by everyone you trusted. You barely escape with your life, only to fall into the deepest place in the world, the abyss. Surrounded by deadly monsters, you unleash your last magic, and suddenly a level 99 warrior appears before you. From that moment, the legend of your revenge against the traitors begins. Our episode begins with this super cool anime. This is the start. There was nothing. The world was pitch black emptiness, inhabited only by demons and jinn. There were no humans. After that, different races appeared. The dragon race, fairies, oni, dwarves, the demon race, dark fairies, centaurs, the monster race, and finally, humans. The scene shifts to a beautiful village. We see Light bidding a warm farewell to his parents, his brother Ellis, and his sister Yumi. He promised them he would become a formidable, very high-ranking adventurer, that he'd support them and make them rich. The scene moves to when he was in another city, perhaps lost. But at that very moment, a member of the monster race approaches him and says, "Beat it, human, you should stay out of our way, or we'll kill you." Light apologizes to him and continues on his way until he reaches the guild. Now it's his turn. A girl from the guild welcomes him and asks if this is his first day registering. He confirms, "Yes, it's my first time registering in my life. My name is Light." She starts writing his registration form and tells him, "You're rank F, the lowest rank. Since this is your first time, but tell me, do you have any skills?" He replies, "Yes, of course, I do." She says, "Show me then. Let's see." He informs her that it's the skill of infinite gotcha. "I'll explain now," he says. A star comes out of his hand, he starts spinning it, and then a card appears. It has a thorn on it, but when he pulls it out, it's unfortunately a bent thorn. He tells her, "Don't be shocked. Wait. I'll try again." He tries once, twice, a third time. He pulls out a rotten apple and moldy bread. She says to him, mockingly, "Well, your talent is clearly very good." He tells her, "Do whatever you want." And with that, she hands him the rank F card, the lowest rank. Before leaving, he asks her if there's any work he can start right away. She says, "Look, buddy, the easiest jobs are posted on that bulletin board over there." He looks at the board, but his face changes. She says, "I have a feeling you can't read." "Unfortunately, yes, I can't read. I'm illiterate," he admits. "Don't worry about it," she says. "In that case, there's gathering firewood, moving trays, and cutting grass. Farm work, basically." He says, "Anything, as long as I can work and earn money." After that, Light adapts to his job. He carries stones, fills the cart, and works very hard, strenuous labor. He returns at the end of the day with a small amount of money. Despite his huge effort, the money is little. But that's how the world works. You work hard, you get a small amount of money. You do easy work, you get lots of money. A world where everything is backwards. This money is barely enough for me to afford lodging tonight. But then, a great disaster happens. A group of monsters confronts him. What do you expect them to do to him? Please pause the video and write your answer in the comments. One of the monsters bumps into him and says, "Are you stupid? Watch where you're going." "I'm sorry, I really didn't notice," he replies. "No, my dear," they say. "You've dirtied my clothes. Who's going to wash them now? Look, I'll take this money. It's barely enough for my laundry bill." Light gets angry and says, "Please, give me back my money. That's my money and I worked hard for it all day. I won't be able to stay the night without it." But the monster hits him with a powerful blow, knocking him to the ground, and then says, "Be grateful if you can even rent a pigsty with that amount. Now get out of our sight. To let you go, we have to take this money. Come on guys, let's take the money and go get a drink." Light was very sad and couldn't do anything. At that moment, he sees a group of elves, and one extends a hand to him, checking on him. He is startled. She says, "Don't worry, I won't hurt or harm you." Then she gives him a brotherly hug, to the point where he thinks to himself, "Did this fairy or elf get her knees muddy just to come down and hug me? Am I dreaming or what?" She says, "Oh, don't worry, you're awake. Seriously, come on, get up." Then he sees the group. They belong to a troop called the Alliance of Tribes, a group that includes the 9 races we talked about at the beginning of the episode. The wolf speaks to him, saying, "I, for example, am from the monster race. My name is Garo, and that girl who extended her hand is Sasha from the dwarves. There are other people too, a dragon, a demon, the dwarf with the beard, Nano, the girl named Sioni from the Dark Jinn, and the red man, Centaur. All we need now is a human to complete our squad. We formed this group pursuing a noble cause. We want to put an end to racial discrimination and create a fair world for everyone." First, my friends, if you are followers of the Madra Recaps channel, write in the comments what country you are from. If you are not a follower of Madra Recaps, follow the channel, then write "done" in the comments, and also what country you are from. They continue their conversation, saying, "We need someone like you to join us." Light is very happy with this beautiful idea. After that, the scene shifts to Light, with the group of monsters. The dragon quickly rescues him, another monster attacks him, but another girl, yes, Sasha, saves him. She says, "What's the matter, buddy? I can't take my eyes off you for a minute. We're in the abyss, the darkest place on Earth. You'll die instantly if anything hits you here. I'll protect you, don't worry." But the rest of the squad gathers and teases her, saying, "Sasha can't stop herself from focusing on Light. All the blood is rushing to her cheeks. Look how red her face is." She says, "That's not true. I just don't want anyone in the squad to be lost." The dragon speaks to him and says, "It's okay. Isn't it enough that you can do one thing? It's enough that you'll do something for us and cook for the squad. That's all we want. Now let's get going. We have a long way ahead of us." They continue on their way, and then suddenly stop at a place to rest. Light goes to prepare tea for them. One of them comes to him and says, "Light, wait. I'll bring the tea right away." "Haha," the monster informs him. "That won't be necessary. You will be exiled from this squad now. But why? What did I do? Light asks. That's just the way it is. You will be exiled from the squad. You're not coming with us. Don't you hear? You've become useless to us now. You don't have the abilities we do, and you'll hold us back. Sasha, the girl who was kind to him, says, "This boy is so stupid. He makes me feel sad." Everyone agrees to get rid of him and exile him from the squad. Everyone is mocking him. "You must be kidding. Tell me you're kidding," he pleads. They reply, "Is this the time to joke with a despicable and stupid human like you? But I'm not stupid. You were very kind to me just a little while ago. What happened now?" Garo says to him, "Buddy, we were pretending and deceiving you, you foolish idiot. Unfortunately, you're not useful for anything. When we saw your talent, we thought this kid would benefit us, but unfortunately, it's useless. Look, we've talked to you a lot. Now it's time for the end. You won't speak much anymore." The dragon orders Garo to eliminate him immediately. This means they will banish him from existence, and Garo will take care of it. Garo sharpens his very strong gleaming claws and tries to shred his face, which is now smeared with blood. Light is completely shocked, standing in front of these monsters, terrified. He runs quickly, but they say to him, "Run all you want. You'll only end up as ground meat for some monsters in the abyss." Then Sasha, the girl who had befriended him from the beginning and hugged him, shoots an arrow into his leg. And this, my friends, teaches us never to trust anyone, no matter the circumstances. The arrow pierces his leg, and he falls to the ground, crying and screaming from the intense pain. Garo then hits him with a very powerful blow that nearly knocks the breath out of him and begins kicking him. The dragon tells Garo, "That's enough. Finish him off with one strike." Light tries to move and tries to resist death. He clings to life even though he knows he's going to die inevitably. And indeed, my friends, something strange happens and an instantaneous teleportation circle activates. Garo tries to strike him quickly before he can escape, but the circle activates swiftly, and he teleports to another place. Perhaps a place even harsher than where he was. Light could barely believe he was still alive. The instant teleportation trap activated at the last moment, sending him to another part of this labyrinth. He began to cry, remembering his father, mother, and siblings. He missed them all. He thought back to the group of monsters who invited him to their team, how well they treated him and how much kindness they showed. I respected them, believed in them, and was so happy about it. And yet it was all just a lie. They deceived me into joining an expedition into the labyrinth, then tried to kill me, treating me like trash with huge mocking grins on their faces, talking about some nonsense. I don't even know what maestro they were talking about. I'll kill them all. I will have my revenge. They hurt me so much. They will all pay. I will not die here. I swear I will rip out their guts. Suddenly, huge rocky monsters appear. They are level 1000. Light is terrified, as these are the kind of monsters you only hear about in folktales. He realizes he has truly been sent to the deepest part of the abyss in this labyrinth. Despite the monsters advancing and preparing to attack, he is determined to fight and not surrender. He frantically searches for a solution to fight this thing and tries to activate his gacha repeatedly, but it doesn't respond. He insists on activating it, just to escape those villains. Suddenly, the gacha activates, emitting a brilliant light. Many magical gates open from it, instantly eliminating the monsters on the spot. A voice says, "I will not allow anyone to harm my master, no matter the cost." Then, a beautiful girl bows to her master, Light. She begins to heal his wounds and apologizes, saying, "She could not bear to see your handsome face wounded this way, my lord. I have taken it upon myself to be your caretaker, my lord." Light is surprised that he no longer feels any pain. He stands up, the agony completely gone, and can barely believe it. The girl introduces herself, and he tells her his name is Light. She replies, "Master Light, Lord of Light." That name sounds grand and celestial to the ear. According to the maid's code of honor, I am bound by duty to my master, Light, Lord of Light. I shall live in your service, devoted until death, and I pledge my absolute loyalty to you. Light is completely astonished and asks, "Where exactly did you come from?" She informs him that her level is 9,999, and she is known as May, the ever-searching maid. "I am an extremely rare card that emerged from your limited Master Light gacha. I will remain bound to you even after death." Light is highly perplexed. "But my unlimited gacha is worthless. There's no way someone as magnificent as you could come out of it, miss." The maid asks him to call her May, without any titles. Light does so, which makes her very happy. She then asks him for another favor. "To use my ability, my innate skill is appraisal. Specifically, it is impossible for your gift to be worthless, my lord. Please allow me to appraise it." Light gives her permission. May performs the appraisal and can barely believe it. She explains that her master's abilities are hidden beneath a thick layer of concealment. "It's impossible for anyone who is not at my level to see the details." She then tells him, "Your special power is not worthless at all. Your gacha has an infinite number of pathways. The gift you receive has probabilities and card rarities that vary based on the density of surrounding mana. Mana is something that flows everywhere throughout the world. However, its density is at its lowest on the surface. This means that the chance of an extremely rare card like me appearing is close to zero. But mana is abundant here, in the depths of this labyrinth. This means you have much better chances of obtaining a rare card. You are very brave, my lord, to have traveled all the way down to the bottom of this labyrinth alone. However, encountering any monster could be fatal, given your current statistics. But fear not. I shall always be with you from now on." Light cuts her off, saying, "You are wrong. I never intended to face the abyss alone." He starts crying, remembering being with the treacherous team. "They all betrayed me. I was cut and shot with arrows. I was nearly killed by people I thought were my friends. They said my gift was bad and called me a pathetic human. All I wanted was to provide for my family. How could they treat me this way just because I'm human? The pain was unbearable. It hurt so much. And all that talk about ending discrimination and creating a normal world, they just wanted to fool me. It's insane. They were so kind one moment, but then they turned into evil murderers. They will all pay the price. I won't rest until they get what they deserve. Tears stream from his eyes. He is consumed by rage. Mei embraces him and he calms down. The maid apologizes for everything that happened and reassures him. With my power available to you at any time, I shall make them regret the day they were born. I will inflict a severe punishment upon them. It is an easy matter for me. Please, issue the command and I will do everything you ask. I will hunt down those deceitful heathens with all speed and bring their heads to you on spears, my lord. Light asks her to wait and show them mercy, but Mei, knowing her master's kind heart, tells him, they do not deserve mercy, my lord. Light replies, I put my trust in them and they deceived me, and I nearly died after being severely beaten and dragged to this hell. But this is only because I was weak. So I need to become stronger. Perhaps it's impossible for a human like me, but I want to take my revenge with my own hands, and I will make them all suffer. Do you think that is a pipe dream? Mei. She bows to him and grants her master this wish. If personal revenge is what you seek, my lord, it is my honor to assist you in achieving it. I believe in your potential more than anything else, my lord. Light is very happy with her words. He begins to activate his gacha again in this mana-filled location to establish a kingdom capable of paving the way for his revenge. The black depths were flooded with bright light, and the first page in his great tale of revenge had begun. Wait for us in the next episode, a very exciting episode of this anime. What will Light do to those traitors and deceivers? Before you leave this video, please subscribe to the channel and activate the bell button to receive all that is new. 3 years went by in this place and Light had created a kingdom of his own in this abyss. Every maid were a fangirl of Light, and that just irritated me so much, but Light told to mind them and goes around his land on a survey. There were many stores and people living here and everyone respects Light. He's the ruler here and he takes care of them like their safety and their necessities. After that survey, he asked about others and Mei said Aoyuki is currently creating a map of the abyss and the surface, and she reported nothing unusual. And then comes the mage, Lady Ellie, who's been developing new magic for Light's plan, and it was also in good flow. He's dumb and she's doing the patrol duty of the castle right now. With that, he arrived to meet Jack, another powerful summon, and he gets too casual with Light. But Light never minds, because he saw Jack as an older brother. In this 3 years, Jack has trained Light in close quarters and turned him into a pure monster. By the way, Nozuna was really doing her job and met the 4 maids on the way. She was happy to carry out Light's work and maids started praising her for such honest work. Nuna is easily manipulated, so the maids asked for a favor. Then she went to a place that was off limits to other maids, and she found Mei in that place. Mei was cleaning up Light's room, but Nuna went inside and saw the bedsheet was a mess. And by the looks of it, she was sniffing it. But Nozuna is too pure, or rather, too naive to understand this sort of things. That's why Mei came up with some stupid reason and she believed her words. But then she remembers the message those 4 mates sent. It says, stop monopolizing Master Light's room because they also want equal rights, you tyrant Mei. But the last part was hard for Nozuna to understand. But Mei got it fully. It was the curse words and Mei decided to punish them. But first, she gives a few penny to Nuna to send her away like a kid. She quickly went to snack stores to buy some dorayaki and milk, but on the way, she found Ayuki. Ayuki was supposed to be on the surface, but she did already. Yuki had the habit of mimicking a cat, so it's hard to converse with her sometimes. But when Nozuna said she could depend on her, she instantly pulled out her report to show she can do anything on her own. With that, Nozuna continued her duties and came to the throne room. There she got all clingy with Light's throne, but in emotional flow, she accidentally broke the side wing of his throne, so she swiftly ran off after putting it back. Meanwhile, Light went to bath with Jack after a tiring session of fighting, which implies Light is now completely ready to return to the surface to exact his revenge. After that, Mei called in the 4 who sent that complaint through Nozuna, and she was calm, or rather, she was trying to stay calm. But the 4 said they just wanted to lighten her workload in their own way. But Mei remembers the last part of their complaint. It wasn't friendly at all, and worse, they sent it through Nozuna. Now they all started to blame each other, but in any case, Mei assigned them to clean the whole hallway till the throne room with hand. Besides, she has to go to the surface soon, so she told them to work in her absence. In the meantime, Nozuna meets with Ellie, and her work was proceeding smoothly, so she had some spare time on hand. Ellie always picks on Nozuna, so she tries to prove how smart she is, but Nozuna knew she knows nothing about surrounding, and that caused a scene. And then Ellie said how she wants to invite Light to her room for dinner. Nozuna is too pure that she doesn't understand it all. She literally thought Ellie meant dinner only. So after that, Nozuna tried to show she also has an upper hand. Ellie is a mage, so she's not good in close combat, and asked to rely on her. Even Ellie can't be mad on such a pure lady. And that's how she goes away to resume her patrol duty. But somewhere in the castle, 4 mites were still frustrated how Mei was hogging Light all for herself. They wanted to get fair treatment, but Mei is way stronger than them. They also want to go to Light's room and go through all of his belongings and bed as well, but one of them was weird with her taste, because she wanted to use the same utensils as Light. The other 3 found it creepy, but they also want to do the same. But their biggest obstacles is Mei. After all, she's the summon Light pulled, so they can't do much, but it reminds them that the second gacha pull took 3 months, which means Mei was all alone with Light in this dungeon. Their fantasy ran wild, and Mei heard all of their nonsense from outside, even the part where they were praying for her death. So one by one, everyone took a U-turn and said they're always loyal to her to sugarcoat her. But still, May said that 3 months when they were alone, Light was always working hard. So they didn't do anything they were thinking about. But besides that, May added another punishment to this for a clean throne room as well. So when they were in the throne room, cleaning it up, the part Nazuna broke fell down and they thought it was their mistake. But the real culprit was relaxing at night in her room. But the next day, it was time for them to head back on the surface. And watching Light being chummy with Aoki Ellie also tried to hit on him. But a hellhound appears there, and the trauma from 3 years ago still shakes up Light, watching that girls got so ticked that they decided to wipe out the entire hellhound breed. But Light calms him down since he's okay. And furthermore, it's time to put their plan into motion. And that's how the hunt for revenge starts. And right there, our episode ends. But stay tuned to watch more of its episode, and for that, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Our episode begins with the monster Garu's procession, with his followers through the city center. As their champion, everyone greeted him with overwhelming joy, glorifying him like a king. One of the monsters behind him even offered him his sister's hand in marriage, but Garu paid him no attention, as his current interests were far beyond that. At that moment, Garu spotted a miserable human boy scavenging for food in the trash. Instead of ignoring him, he deliberately walked towards him and struck him with his foot, knocking him to the ground. Garu enjoyed bullying and humiliating the boy, before gathering his crew and heading to a private room. In the room, the followers began to exult and praise Garu, as was their custom. One of them said, "You are a miracle, Garu. You rose from the poor monster district and became the closest candidate for the new leadership." Another added, "Even the current leader recognizes your strength." They asked him how he reached such a position. Garu puffed up with pride and said, "All I do is follow my animalistic instinct, which always guides me to the best traits. Like the mission I took 3 years ago. The requirement was to pretend affiliation with the racial unification group and eliminate a human suspected of possessing mysterious power." He continued coldly, "I didn't care to confirm his death, as his weakness guaranteed his demise after what he suffered. It's best to forget that wretch." Suddenly the door opened and a very elegant girl entered. It was May. She asked in a calm voice, "Are you Garu? I want to ask you about someone named Light." His men shouted at her, but Garu raised his hand and said, "Leave her. I want to know what she wants." May said, "I am the servant of Mr. Light, and I have come from a distant country searching for him. My master is from a large and noble family, and I have served him for a long time." Garu doubted her words, thinking, "This doesn't align with the search information done by those who hired me. It was never mentioned that he was from a noble family." But the girl's appearance indeed suggested wealth. Garu smiled and said, "All right. What exactly is your request?" May said, "I received news that Mr. Light died in the dungeon about 3 years ago. I want you to take me to the place of his death to pay my respects, and I will give you pure gold in return." Garu smelled treachery, wondering why she would pay so much gold to visit an old place. But when he looked at her, he found her to be just a weak human, so he laughed inwardly and said out loud, "I will help you, not for the money, but because Light was my friend and I want to honor him." May smiled inwardly with cunning, knowing he was lying, and thanked him and expressed her gratitude. After a full month of travel, they finally reached the place of Light's disappearance. However, Garu was planning to attack May and leave her to die the same way Light had died. As soon as they arrived, May knelt on the ground, tears falling, imagining the difficult moments Light endured in the dungeon's darkness. Garu began his performance. The poor fellow was suddenly attacked by a monster and fell into a transfer trap before we could save him. At the same time, his men quietly moved to close the exit, preparing for the attack, but before they could attack, May said in a voice full of rage, "If I had been with Mr. Light from the start, he would not have been betrayed and fallen into the hands of scum like you." Garu froze and stepped back. "How does she know these details of the betrayal?" he yelled at her. "How do you know this? You're a spy." May breathed angrily and said, "How dare you compare me to them? I am Mr. Light's servant, and the penalty for anyone who doubts my loyalty is death." Garu felt a sudden terror. This ordinary human was emitting a terrifying aura that made his animalistic instinct scream to run. May was about to turn into a massacre, but a calm voice came from behind her. "Enough, May. Leave him. He is my prey." The Garu and his men stiffened in place. They hadn't felt anyone approach. When they looked, they found Light standing before them. Garu's eyes widened in disbelief. "Impossible. How is Light alive?" Light looked at him coldly and said, "I came back to take my due with my own hands, Garu." Garu burst out laughing. "You? The weak one? I am now at level 150, and you are at level 15? How will you even touch me?" He believed that killing Light would make him the greatest champion for the leader. Light said calmly, "Don't you want to ask me how I survived?" Garu laughed sarcastically. "Surely this lady rescued you after your transfer." Which was actually true. Garu yelled at his men to attack. 2 of them quickly lunged, but their heads flew off in an instant. The rest of the men froze in terror, unable even to see May as she finished them off. Light said to May calmly, "Thank you, but from here on, I'll take care of everything. Guard the exit, and don't let anyone escape." Garu tried to compose himself and said to his remaining men, "Don't worry, we won't be defeated by a few weak humans." Light laughed and said, "The one who says this is the weakest of you?" Garu snapped, "That's nonsense. Humans are the weakest beings and have no power." Light raised an eyebrow. "Then how are the heads of 2 of your strongest men rolling now?" Garu ignored him. That was their mistake and stupidity, and he yelled, "Let's go for him." They all rushed at once, but Light didn't move. In seconds, he finished them off, one by one, with a single blow. Garou fell to the ground, disbelieving. Light stood over him and said, "Is this your strength? You are nothing. You think you are superior to humans? You are worthless." Garou decided to use his last card. He broke a contract on his neck, and a huge light burst out, revealing a giant Fenrir-type monster, level 500. Garou screamed confidently, "This is your end, Light. This monster will wipe you out of existence with a single breath." Light stood before him with strange composure and smiled. "Level 500? Still very weak for me." Garou was terrified. "Are you insane? It's impossible for you to defeat it. Kneel and beg for mercy." Light said, "All right, let me show you the difference. I won't move from my spot. Hit me with your strongest attack." Garou yelled at the monster to attack. The monster moved and unleashed a massive energy, a devastating attack called Killer Beast Howl, capable of destroying an entire fortress. The explosion was terrifying and dust covered the area. Garou laughed maniacally, but when the smoke began to clear, his face froze. Light was standing in his place, without a single scratch or a hair moved. Light said with a quiet, sarcastic tone, "This is the attack you were excited about? It's not even enough to warm the air around me." He looked at the monster and said, "You call this weak creature Fenrir? It's barely a small dog." Light extended his hand and pulled out a magic card. "Now let me show you what a true Fenrir looks like." He opened the card, and a massive vortex appeared, out of which an ancient, gigantic wolf emerged, its eye glowing blue, its power freezing the air. He said, "This is the true monster, level 9,000. Garou was paralyzed in his spot. When the wolf looked towards Garou's Fenrir, it took a single breath, and the monster Garou summoned froze instantly and shattered like ice. Garou stood petrified, disbelieving. He said in fear, "This is impossible. What is this monster?" Light said calmly, "Don't worry, it was just a small demonstration. I could have finished your monster with my hand." Then he pointed to the status screen open before him. Garou looked and his face changed, his hand trembling. Light's level was 9999. He screamed in disbelief. "This isn't real. There is no level that reaches this number." He swallowed hard and said with tears and fear, "You can't be Light, you are a devil." Light approached him and said, "Does it matter to you whether I am Light or not? In the end, your fate is the same." Garou completely lost hope, threw down his weapon and fell to his knees, pleading, "Please forgive me, I was following orders. You are the true king of magic, please let me live." Light looked coldly and said, "Before I decide, I have questions you must answer truthfully." Garou agreed immediately. Light said, "First, why did your superiors order you to search for people named the Masters?" Garou was confused. "I don't know who the Masters are. I was following orders." Light said, "Then why, after they confirmed I was not one of them, did they decide to kill me?" Garou said fearfully, "They were orders from above. Your existence must be completely erased, but I don't know the reason." Light was silent for a moment, then looked at Garou's followers and asked them, "Do you know anything about the Masters?" They all replied at the same moment, "Yes, we know." May moved at lightning speed and sliced them all with her sword, saying in a terrifying voice, "The punishment for liars before Light is death." Light looked at Garou and said calmly, "One last question before I decide your fate. If you lie, May knows the truth, and your end will be worse than death." Garou felt frozen. Light said, "Since you have a strong sense, do you think I can win any war against the kings outside the dungeon now?" Garou hesitated and was stressed, but finally said, "With your power, you might win the beginning, but you will lose. You are alone. War is armies and numbers, and in the end you will be defeated." Light smiled, certain of his answer, and said, "You're right. But let me show you something that will change your mind." He extended his hand and pulled out a magic card, and light covered the area. When Garou opened his eyes, he found himself in a huge throne room with many armies before him. He was terrified. Then he saw Light's true army, thousands of fighters in regular ranks. Light walked toward the throne and said loudly, "Display your levels." The soldiers showed their energy. Garou was paralyzed when he saw the numbers. Most of them were above level 5,000, and the weakest was 1,500. He stammered, "The whole level is above 5,000. Even the weakest of them is stronger than all our soldiers," Light said confidently. "And now, Garou, after seeing my army with your own eyes, do you still think a war against the kings is impossible?" Garou could not reply, his face twisted with fear. He said, "You won't just defeat them. You'll make a shawarma out of them too." Light smiled coldly. "I was sure of that. Now that you've confirmed with your own eyes that victory is easy for me." He approached him, his voice heavy like a devil's echo. "Since you were honest with me, I will reward you for your honesty." Garou's face lit up with hope. "You'll forgive me then," Light chuckled lightly. "Of course, it's impossible for me to forgive you, Garou." Then his tone darkened. "I won't kill you, because killing you is a great mercy. I will make you live, but you will wish for death every moment." And he ordered his soldiers to prepare to go to the surface. So, what is our hero planning, and what is the punishment he has prepared for Garou? If you are excited, champion, for the continuation of the events, don't forget to support us with a like and subscription. The episode begins with Light finally returns home to show his family how successful he has become. He's horrified, however, when he arrives to find that his home has been completely destroyed. Terror overruns his entire body as he realizes that his hometown was decimated by an unknown force during his years of being away. 6 months after this, Light is only able to find a tiny bit of relief because the bodies of his family have yet to be found. They might still be alive, and it's a last hope he can cling to. Light's warrior, named Gold, wants them to find a place to stay. So, another warrior named Nemo must remind him to be nicer since Light is grieving. The two begin to argue because Gold wants to stay at a hotel, but the ninja girl would stay with Light anywhere. Their dispute quickly turns into a juvenile argument about who's more loyal to Light and who would endure the worst environment for their master. Light says that they can worry about lodging later because for now, they need to get information about the war they're about to start. Their goal now is to learn the military strength of each nation in the world. Light can't be sure, but he believes that the destruction of his hometown has something to do with the accusation of him being a maestro. Light is then filled with rage, as he can only wonder why maestros are such a big deal that it could lead to so much bloodshed. He declares that if the world turns out to be filled with crooked evil, then he will have no choice but to burn everything to ashes. The power that flows through him when he's at his angriest strikes fear in his allies, and they suggest that he try to temper himself when he's in public. Light plans to get more aggressive moving forward, so he puts a mask on to hide his identity. He tells the others not to call him Light while on the surface, because up here, he wants to be called Dark. The new name will keep the conquered tribes from learning about him, and he decides to register Dark as an adventurer and raise his rank by doing quests. Getting information is the most important thing right now, and having a higher rank means that he will be able to ask questions to higher level people. On their way, they encounter a family that's being robbed. Gold blows their cover by announcing himself, but the bandits prove to be easy for them to defeat. The family gives them a ride to Dragon City, and they explain that the dungeons there are perfect for someone looking to level up. The quality of the dungeon there is extremely high, and it attracts a lot of adventurers. Light told them that there are newbie adventurers, but after they part ways, the girl wonders if it's normal for newbies to be as strong as them. This is Gold and Nemu's first time on the surface, so they're amazed by all the weapon and armor shops. It's because it's a city for adventures, and the Dwarf Kingdom specializes in blacksmithing. It is said that the majority of aspiring adventurers here are human, and that is proven true as the guild is filled with humans. They seem to be terrified of other races, which makes it clear that humans are treated poorly here, just like everywhere else. A while later, Nemo is furious after her master Dark is given the rank F. Unfortunately, it's a rule for everyone to start that way, but Nemo refuses to accept that. She says that her master Dark is the most powerful human being in all of history, and declares that his rank should be Say, for super extra. The humble Light accepts the F rank, however, and he registers successfully. The guy he saved earlier is named Colonel, and he turns out to be the owner of the inn. Light rents out the entire top floor for a month, and he asks that no one step foot inside while they stay there. Colonel refuses to accept payment after Light just saved his life, but Light insists. With that settled, Light uses some detection cards to make sure that there are no items that might spy on them in their rooms. Nu has been wondering about something this entire time, so she points out that Light might get injured with this huge goal of his. He could very easily stay at his castle and just order his warriors to carry out his orders. Light becomes furious at the thought of him not carrying out his revenge with his own hands, and Nema very quickly realizes her mistake. Light's overwhelming thirst for revenge causes the entire building to shake, and Nemo apologizes profusely. Gold admires how Light wants to handle this himself, and Light acknowledges that Nemo was just looking out for his safety. Light apologizes for letting his anger get the best of him, but Nemu shows her remorse by kissing his foot. Many leaders in this world force their followers to do this, but Light hates it. It's too embarrassing in his eyes, but Gold says that he's kind of into it. The next day, Light notices how lively the shops are, which makes it clear that the dungeon must be as good as advertised. The people are amazed by Gold's armor, but they also notice Light's mask, and Light wonders if it makes him stick out too much. There is a huge line to get into the dungeon, but Gold notices that there are no elves. This makes sense though, because the elves and dwarves are currently feuding over who has claimed the dungeon. Light gets uncomfortable by how close Nemo is to him, but she says that this is her way of protecting him. Just then they notice 3 mysterious people in hoods as they cut the line. However, the person at the front carries himself with incredible sharpness despite the giant and obviously heavy weapon that he carries. Some adventurers are too terrified to say anything, but Light isn't, and he reminds the stranger that cutting in line is against the rules. The guy is furious, as he can't believe that Light doesn't know him. But Light doesn't care, and stands by what he said. His warriors join in with some insults as Nemo wonders if these guys are too dumb to know how lines work, and this makes the guy really angry. He refuses to be spoken to that way by some disgusting humans, but his servant reminds him to restrain himself so they don't cause a scene. This guy is obviously very strong, as his servant reminds him that using his sword would be going way overboard. They decide to just go to the back of the line, so all the adventurers around Light how amazing that was. The other group apologizes for not saying anything out of fear of starting a fight, and they're grateful for Light being there. They can't help but wonder if Gold's armor is made of real gold, but Nemo hits them with some reality, as she says that it's fake. Gold is too malleable to be used in armor, so the adventurers apologize for such a silly question. Gold uses this color as more of a symbol to express his dedication to being a knight. The adventurers can tell that this is their first time at the dungeon, because they didn't come fully prepared. The first floors are incredibly large, so many people camp inside for days, but Light's group doesn't have any camping equipment. Light realizes that they have become accustomed to carrying everything in his item box, So, Nemo wonders if they should carry some fake luggage to make them look normal. So it's their turn to enter the dungeon, and Light is amazed by how unique dungeons are. They are very mysterious, and learning their true purpose would require a deep analysis of the dungeon core. It would probably be impossible to learn everything about them, and Light is sure that Ellie wouldn't even be able to do it. Dungeons are filled with mana that gets stronger the deeper down they go, and that power gives birth to a variety of monsters and traps. The possibilities are endless, and dungeons can even be like their own world. This dungeon's incredibly beautiful, and Gold doesn't sense anyone nearby, so he says that Light can use some of his cards. Light uses some cards that conceal their presence and allows them to fly so they can easily make their way through the dungeon. Light never ceases to amaze Nemo with his abilities, because he also had a card called Clairvoyance that shows him the fastest route to the next floor. All of his abilities make things too easy and boring sometimes, but it saves him a bunch of time. Meanwhile, the guy from earlier is still angry about being talked down to, and he unleashes his anger by using his giant sword to take out some orcs. He says that he's the youngest and most elite warrior among the Elven Kingdom's White Knights, and he calls himself a genius. His name is Kaido, and he declares that he's a legendary hero who single-handedly took the life of a maestro. His servant, named Yanok, reminds him that their goal is to defeat the trolls in the lower floors, but this infuriates Kaido. He explains that these orcs insulted him by challenging him, and no one is allowed to do that because he's the literal descendant of a maestre. He blames his low level for people thinking they can challenge him, but Yanok doesn't think that level 1500 is low. He's well beyond the typical max level for elves. But Kaido's rage and ego don't let him accept this. Kaido declares that he will become stronger so he can bring punishment to those that disrespect him. Yanok feels the same way, as they have both been exiled. Yanok was cast out because of his banned research, but he promises to put that research to good use for Kaido. Deep down, Kaido knows that he can't trust Inuk, so he plans to dispose of him after he helps him level up. Elsewhere, Light and his group finish up eliminating some giant trolls. They only need to provide the guild proof that they made it down to the 3rd floor so he can rank up. So they collect some gems from the beasts and call it a day. On their way back, they notice that the group from earlier is in battle. These guys work together to take out some goblins, and they're surprised when Light's group appears out of nowhere. Light actually saved them from being attacked by a dangerous snake, and he reminds them that while they did a good job in battle, they can never let their guard down. They all show their appreciation, but our heroes become very serious as they realize that something is coming. Some terrifying wolves appear out of the woods, but they shouldn't be in this area. Monsters this strong should only be deep in the forest. So, the group of kids think they should run. Light explains that the wolves are not the real problem, and the group is stunned when the wolves run right past them. The kids are terrified as the real danger rapidly approaches, and it turns out to be a giant mantis monster. Thanks for watching my recap. The rookie leader doesn't understand how this could be happening since that species was supposed to have been exterminated 10 years ago. He tells Mia to attack with magic to throw the mantis off balance and buy them time to escape. But since the kids want to run away, Black asks to hunt the creature with his group. Gold says that a hit from that thing must really hurt, and Nemu guesses it must be around level 500. The boys' leader thinks fighting that thing is a death sentence, and that the only way out is to get away as fast as possible. But Gold charges at the insect and starts a duel against it. After realizing it wouldn't be easy to get close to the enemy in melee, Dark casts fire arrows to attack from a distance. But the quad-blade mantis reflects the flames back at the caster, almost causing serious damage. The rookie quartet is sure this is the end. So, the leader asks Mia to use another spell, but the girl is completely amazed that the hooded sorcerer can cast attack magic without chanting, and she can't understand how no one else seems to care about it. Her companion doesn't know what that means, but he knows they need to react quickly. Laughing at the situation, Gold promises to teach the boys how a knight should wield his weapons on the battlefield, which basically means attacking with the sword and defending with the shield. For example, when attacked, the Golden Knight raises his shield and completely breaks the mantis's claw. Then, teaching the boys step by step how to succeed, he explains that after destabilizing the opponent, you must strike with your sword at the right moment. Since battles are always about technique and creativity, Dark follows up with more fire arrows. The mantis reflects them again, but this time they recalculate their trajectory and hit the insect's back, taking full control of the projectiles. The mage is able to manipulate the fight as he pleases. Mia is stunned that this guy can control 30 fire arrows at once, while Dark destroys the mantis' other claw and decides to finish the fight once and for all. However, realizing it's about to die, the insect itself turns around and tries to flee as fast as it can. Dark acknowledges the monster's intelligence in trying to escape, but today isn't its lucky day. With a wall of fire card, the gacha player raises a barrier that blocks its escape, leaving Mia even more impressed by what she's seeing. The quad-blade mantis spreads its wings to fly away, so Nemu leaps into action with a huge jump. As she approaches the target, she strikes a blow that shatters the mantis into pieces. The assassin strikes a victory pose to receive applause from the group, but Gold complains that she ruined the best parts of the monster and now they can't sell it anymore, driving the woman into despair. While Dark forgives his subordinate, the rookie quartet wonders who these people even are. Shortly after, Gimra finds the magic gem of the quad-blade mantis, and Dark sees it as a chance for them to level up. The boys' leader asks if the trio is part of some famous S-rank adventurer group or something like that, but Dark says they're all rank F, which blows the kid's mind. Mia conjures a water sphere so the adventurers can wash their hands. Gold says his armor is still clean and shiny as always, while Dark humbly thanks her kindness and washes up. The rookie leader replies that they owe them much more than that for all the help they received. So, since night is falling and the place could get dangerous, he invites the trio to camp with them for the night in the forest, even though they only have a simple tent and basic food to offer. He also admits that Mia's dying to talk to Dark about magic, which is written all over her face. So, everyone gathers to spend the night together. After setting up the camp and lighting a fire, they sit down to eat. Hearing Dark's story, Mia realizes that the boy's talent comes from his parents, who are also sorcerers. The boy praises her abilities, but she sees herself as far from good enough since she can't cast spells without chanting, much less tactical class ones. Her brother admits he's confused since he doesn't understand why that's so important. So she explains impatiently that there are 3 classes of spells. Combat spells such as Fire Arrow and Ice Blade are effective against a single target, while tactical spells are useful for hitting a much larger area. Finally, strategic spells are powerful enough to cause a global impact, like tsunamis, earthquakes, and meteors, but they require a whole group of mages accumulating mana and reciting to cast them for Draconidants, elves, dark elves, and demons. Casting advanced spells is easy, but not for humans. Even so, this guy Dark goes against everything that's ever been said and simply does what no other human has ever been able to do before, which certainly makes him not just epic, but legendary. Gold and Nemu completely agree, while the boy looks visibly embarrassed. Likewise, the girl's brother forces a nervous smile and asks her to tone it down a bit. He admits he doesn't know much about spells, but he can confidently say that Lord Dark is a good person. He also points out that Mia is talented enough to earn a recommendation to the Magic Academy of the Douche, and that she'll surely be able to cast tactical class spells one day. Dord remembers that the Duque is the nation created by all races, the Principality of the Nine, and Gold guesses that the girl must be incredibly gifted to have been invited to the most prestigious magic academy in the world. Her brother explains that they lost their parents during an epidemic, so she never had the means to attend, and that's why they formed an adventure group with their childhood friends Gimra and Wordy to make a living. Despite everything, the team's goal is to earn enough money by exploring dungeons to fund Mia's admission to the Magic Academy of the Douche. Mia feels honored to have such valuable friends by her side, but she asks them not to do anything crazy just to help her with that. Dark observes the beautiful relationship between the siblings, which reminds him of his own little sister. With that in mind, he points out that the group will be able to achieve their goals, especially after seeing how talented Mia is. Embarrassed, the girl thanks him for the compliment while her brother asks what made the trio want to become adventurers. With his head down, Dark says that his parents died in a fire. Nemu adds that this incident left Lord Dark with terrible burns, and now they need to find a potion strong enough to heal those wounds, while Gold completes by saying that they owe a lot to that boy's parents, and that's why they are traveling with him. Inconvenient and impulsive as always. Gimra asks if Gold and Nemu are some kind of item or if they are a couple. The assassin replies that she would never go out with a yellow can, and the knight says that he's only interested in mature maidens who can recognize his golden aura. Since the girl is single, Gimra invites her out, but the woman says that her heart belongs exclusively to Lord Dark. Meanwhile, even in the middle of the night, Kaido keeps active and takes down a gigantic ogre in the forest. Yenok praises his companion's victory, but Kaido believes that his sword, Grandius, is a legendary weapon of prestige, meaning it shouldn't be wasted on vermin like that. Yanok insists that collecting some parts of these monsters is important for his research, because that way, he'll one day be able to surpass the growth limit imposed on each race. The next step is to obtain the primary material for the research humans about that. Kaido can't wait to begin the hunt. Days later, the guild receptionist is delighted with the amount of gems Dark brought, and the woman's excitement was such that it drew the attention of all the adventurers, who started whispering about that extraordinary feat. Mainly because rumors had already spread that they were the group responsible for defeating a quad-voice mantis, which earned them the nickname Black Melee. Nemu explains that that's why she had said Lord Dark deserved an S rank right from the start. Ignoring in the woman, the receptionist promises a premium meal for the mage while he waits for the sale to be completed. After they leave the guild, Gold jokes that that little bird must be singing a sweeter melody after today, while Nemu remains angry because no one gives her master the recognition he deserves. As they walk through the streets, the three are recognized as the ones responsible for killing a quad-voice mantis, to the point that 2 men approach them to ask if they really are the Black Millie, since that's how everyone is calling them. Nemu steps in front of her master and asks what the strangers want with him, but the men promise they don't want any trouble and introduce themselves as Suvalin and Gilbert. Suvalin explains that from what he's heard, Dark and his companions killed a mantis and managed to reach the 5th floor of the dungeon. Gilbert says that's an exaggeration, since it took the 2 of them years to not even get close to that, so Nemu brings her knife close to the man's neck and asks if he's calling Lord Dark a liar. While he tries to explain, Gold wants to know what they want. Suvalin says they're just trying to be nice, and that many humans in the city have greatly admired the Black Millie since their feat proves that humans can compete with other races. In fact, it would be great if Dark and his companions could teach a lesson to those who think otherwise, and put them in their proper place. In the middle of this, the rest of the men's group calls them for an activity, so Suvalin and Gilbert leave. After hearing those guys' words, people from other races comment among themselves about how humans always say the stupidest things, and that this talk about having defeated a quad-voice mantis is probably pure lies. Since it's easier for Palmas to win a world championship than for a human to cast a tactical spell without an incantation, not really caring about that widespread gossip, Dark and his companions fly toward the Dagger Dungeon in search of the 5th floor. But, on the way, they meet the boys group, so they land to talk with them since it's been a few days since they last spoke. According to their leader, it's a great time for them to show up since Mia has something to deliver, full of embarrassment as a way of thanking them for everything. The mage gives Dark an ointment for burns that she learned to make from her grandmother before she passed away. It's not something that will make the scars disappear, but it will certainly help with the pain. In return, the boy draws a card from which he conjures a bracelet to give to the girl, which makes her just as grateful as he is. At night, flying toward their destination, Nimue asks if it was really a good idea for her master to give Mia an ultra-rare wish bracelet, since it doesn't seem like a fair trade for a bit of ointment. About that, Dark thinks the accessory looked great on the girl. Gold points out that that item can grant small miracles if the user's wish is strong enough and believes his master chose that bracelet carefully for the girl, which is the attitude of a true gentleman. Because of that, he teases Nimue, saying she should be less materialistic and more spiritual. When they arrive at the 5th floor of the dungeon, Dark sends his 2 companions to hunt the Yetis they need, then activates a teleportation card to return to the Abyss throne room, where he is happily welcomed by his elite warriors. Later, while being served tea by May, the master is asked how things are going, and he replies that it has been great, being an adventurer for a change of pace, to make some friends and see more of the world. He asks if there's any news regarding the revenge plan, and Ellie assures him that everything will be in order soon. Satisfied with the mage, the master praises her, and also keeps May in charge of the Abyss during his absence. When he says that Ayuki must continue scouting the ancient forest, Mizuna excitedly asks what she should do. Knowing that she's too clumsy to deal with complex plans, the boss only asks her to keep everyone safe in the meantime. Once everything is ready, Dark can hardly wait to enjoy the miserable face of Sasha, at night in the Dungeon of Daggers. While the other companions sleep, Suvalin and Gilbert find it strange that the 3rd floor is so bright, since it's usually covered in mist. Changing the subject, Suvalin asks what his partner thinks about the Black Mallet, knowing that the masked man, according to rumors, defeated the Quadriphus Montes with tactical magic without using any incantation. If that's true, Gilbert believes that magician might be a legendary knight or an ancient hero reincarnated. Suvalin really hopes that's the case, since humans need a champion to raise the morale of their race, as they are deeply despised by society. Having said that, he leaves to take a leak. When he returns, the man finds Gilbert's head cut off on the ground, killed by Kaido the elf with the enormous sword, who also slaughtered the rest of the group. With each moment, the elf despised humans as if they were insects, not even worth the time it takes to kill them. Since they were in a swamp, such a wet and sticky terrain, Suvalin thinks his friends should have heard the enemy's arrival. But the strangest thing is that Gilbert's head was taken off without any sign of struggle, which makes him believe that the elf must have used some kind of special magic to provoke an uncontrolled reaction from the human. Kaido stomps on Gilbert's head several times, but given the situation, Suvalin realizes that this enemy is far too much for him, so he plans to escape and report what happened to the Adventurers Guild. With that in mind, he throws a smoke bomb and runs, trusting the advantage of not being seen in a territory he knows like the palm of his hand. However, to his surprise, the man is hit by something and falls to the ground with a wound on his forehead. When he looks back, he sees Kaido floating on a magic platform, while Yanok suddenly appears and strikes his back with his staff, knocking him out. Yanok points out how cowardly that human was for running away after seeing his friends dead, and also complains that Kaido killed all of them except one, which is far from enough for their research, since every experiment can only be completed through countless failures. In other words, he will need many more people. Kaido promises to be more careful next time, but warns in advance that he will exterminate any human who dares to raise a sword against him. Excited about the future, Yanuk is eager to show humans the only role that worms like them can play in the great theater of life. Check out these videos appearing on your screen and subscribe so you don't miss the next. A little while later, up on the surface, Namiyamu is arguing with the guild receptionist to try and get Light promoted. But while the receptionist is aware how strong Light is, they already made an exception to promote him from F to D rank recently, and not enough time has passed for them to consider another exception. However, she does tell him that if he accomplishes something extraordinary again, the guild would have no choice but to promote him. So, Light decides to try it. After looking around for the day, he finds a flyer talking about an unknown adventurer killer, and tracking this killer down should be enough of an accomplishment. So, he decides to hunt the killer down. However, he has no leads to go off of, so it is going to be difficult. Gold suggests he could use his Gaka ability to get a card that will help track the killer down, but Light tells him that the cards he gets are completely random, so the odds of him receiving a tracking card are really slim. In that case, Nimue asks if they should return to the Abyss to get someone who has skills more suited for tracking, and that does sound like a good idea, but it would take too long and he doesn't want to waste too much time catching the killer, and they seem to be targeting exclusively humans, and he doesn't want to let that go unpunished. Just then, the three feel a space rift open within the room, meaning something is about to show up. So they get into battle formation and wait to see what it is. However, to Light's surprise, when the portal opens, he sees Mia fall out of the portal, unconscious, and after catching her, the miracle bracelet he gave her breaks in two. Light has no idea what happened to her, but he knows it must be bad. So he carries her to bed, and as he does so, he can hear her mumbling to herself about how she needs to hurry and inform him of something. He casts a healing spell on Mia to help her recover, but she's still in no condition to speak. So, Light apologizes, but he's going to need to pry into her mind a little. He casts a powerful mind spell on her, and as he does so, he sees a flashback to Mia and the rest of her party meeting a second group of adventurers. The second group warned them to be careful because there have been reports of an adventurer killer going around, and the guy apparently only targets humans. The kids had heard about it, but they were under the impression that it was just a rogue monster. However, now that they think about it, a monster wouldn't target humans specifically. After hearing this, Mia got worried because she knew their party wouldn't stand a chance if the killer attacked them. And the same goes for the other group of adventurers, which is why they plan to get out of here as soon as possible. Before the second party leaves, they tell the kids that they should probably leave the dungeon as well, since until the killer is caught, it won't be safe for humans down here. The kids took the warning seriously and decided to leave as soon as possible. But since they weren't expecting to have to make a sudden hike back to the surface, they are all really tired. Due to this, they weren't able to make it back before nightfall, but they couldn't afford to stop since they did know when the killer might strike again. And in a stroke of bad luck, a moment later they hear Yankee's voice telling them that it's dangerous to be out here this late at night. At this point, the kids have no idea that these two are behind the killings, so Mia suggests they should warn them. The group tells Yannick and Co. that there has been a string of killings happening down here, so it would be safer to return to the surface for now. Kaito and Yanni thank them for the valuable information, and at first the kids are relieved, since they think that must mean they are just normal adventurers like them. But then Yanni starts talking about how he wishes he had put more effort into covering up his and Kito's attack, since the news spreading has caused all the human adventurers to wise up and avoid the dungeon. As soon as the kids hear him say that, their blood runs cold at the realization that the killers they were so worried about are the people who are right in front of them. And Kito seems to really be enjoying the look of pure terror on their faces. The kids are all terrified, but they know there's no way all of them will make it out of this, even if they run. So the three boys takes out their weapons and tell Mia to flee while they buy her some time. Kaida feels insulted that lowly humans would think they stand a chance against him. So, as Mia's brother charges forward, he slices him across the chest without a second thought. He does the same to the other two as well, and while they aren't dead yet, their wounds are so severe that they are practically knocking on death's door. Even so, they still force themselves back to their feet and yell for Mia to run away while they charge at Kito. And this infuriates Kito even more, so he decides to kill them outright. Yanni yells at him for this because he won't be able to use those two as guinea pigs now that they are dead. However, Kyo tells him to shut up, because there's no way he was going to let them live when they were so disrespectful to him, fighting for their lives and stuff, so Yanni should still be able to carry out his experiments. Yanni admits that a magician is especially valuable as a research subject, but he says, those boys could have been just as valuable, so Kyo promises not to kill any more guinea pigs from now on. But before Yanifa begins experimenting with Mia, Kyo plans to do some terrible things to her just for fun. And even Yanifa doesn't want to be involved in that debauchery, so he just reminds Kito to make sure Amiya doesn't die, and turns away. Mia is terrified as Kato looms over her with nefarious intent. But before he could do anything, her brother suddenly gets back on his feet and yells for Mia to run. Yanni is amazed that he managed to cling on to life despite his severe wounds. And that's the kind of tenacity he needs in a test subject. So he tells Kato to make sure he captures the boy alive at all costs. His body is on the verge of giving out. But that doesn't matter to him right now, because the only thing on his mind right now is making sure that Mia gets out of here. He tells her again to run away, and as much as she doesn't want to leave her brother behind, she knows this is the only chance she will get, since Kia is currently distracted, so she turns and starts running. As soon as Kito realizes she is escaping, he prepares to chase after her, but Elio attempts to strike him. And while he had no hope of actually injuring Kito, it's enough of a distraction to buy Mia a few more seconds to escape. Kaida really wants to just kill Mia's brother and get this over with, but Yanni reminds him that he needs the boy alive so he can't cause any fatal wounds. Meanwhile, Elio has been muttering to himself, trying to figure out a way to buy as much time for Mia to escape as possible. And he thinks back to the lesson he learned from Gold when they first met. Gold said that it is normal to assume that a sword is for attacking and that a shield is for defending. But battle is about creativity and skill, so you need to be able to surprise your opponent if you want to win. Elio puts that lesson into practice here and throws his sword at Kito. Kaido assumes this must be his attack, so he leans back to dodge the blade. But while he wasn't paying attention, Elio closed the distance and clocked him in the jaw with his shield, knocking Kito over. That's the best Elio could do. But he is really proud of himself because, even if he is going to die here, at least he managed to land a clean blow on Kito. Kaida can believe a lowly human was actually able to land a hit on him. And he feels so humiliated and enraged that he completely disregards Yen's request to keep Elio alive, and uses his sword to shoot a light spear straight through his abdomen. He somehow didn't die instantly from the attack, and Kaida plans to make him suffer as much as possible for daring to strike his majestic face. But Yannick stops him and says he needs to go after Mia immediately, because if she manages to escape, things will get complicated once the guild finds out about what they've been doing here. Kaida is still angry, but he understands Yankee's point, so he turns around and starts chasing after Mia. Mia has been running as fast as she can for a while now, but before she can make it to the exit, Kia blocks her path with 3 light blades. Mia is in disbelief because she didn't think he would be able to catch up so quickly, but Kyo possesses the Elf Nation's Phantasm-class weapon, the legendary sword Grandius, and it allows him to create as many blades of light as he wants and move them around at will. He tells her there's no use running since with his blades. Catching up to her is a trivial task, but Mio still refuses to give up. She casts a spell and launches a few icicles at Kyo to break his line of sight so she can escape into the forest. But after running for a few more minutes, Kyo finds her again and knocks her to the ground. He tells her she should be grateful that she will be sacrificed for the benefit of a future legendary hero like him. But Mia yells that he doesn't deserve to be called that. The title of legendary hero is reserved for people who are both strong and kind, like Light, but Kyo, on the other hand, is nothing but a loser who enjoys bullying those weaker than him. Hearing that strikes a nerve for Kyo, as he recalls how the other elves all mocked him for being a good-for-no bully who is only willing to pick on the weak. It was part of the reason he was banished from elf society in the first place. But he refuses to accept that he is the problem, and instead blames everyone else around him for not recognizing how great he is. He loses his mind in anger and forgets all about keeping Mia alive, so he is about to strike her down. And Mia can tell that there's no escaping this attack, but she still refused to give up and was desperately trying to think of a way to get to Light so she can ask for help. And that's when the bracelet kicked in. Back to the present. After learning of everything Mia and the others went through, Light is beside himself with anger. So he tells Gold and Nemu to get ready to head out because he's about to crash out on those elves. Back in the dungeon, Yannick is trying to heal Elio's wounds, but from the state his body is in, it looks like it's already too late to save him, and he is really upset about losing such a valuable specimen. Just then, Kido returns, and Yanni asks him if he managed to capture the girl, but he says he lost track of her. And as soon as Yanni hears that, he starts panicking. He asks how Kido could let himself be bested by a little girl. But Kido says it wasn't his fault, because how was he supposed to know that she would just vanish into thin air like that? Yanni can't believe it, since there's no way a human child like her would have a teleportation item on her. But that's definitely what happened, so he needs to face the facts, and the facts say the two of them are screwed. If Mia reports what happened to the guild, it will only be a matter of time before word reaches the elf nation, and as soon as they figure out where Kido is, they are going to come after him for stealing the grand sword. To make matters worse, the elf nation will almost certainly send the head knight after them as well, and he is said to be around level 3000, with all his personal knights under him being at least level 2000. In other words, Kyo and Yen by extension are cooked. Their only shot at surviving now would be to try out Yankee's research in order to make Kyo strong enough to face off against the Elven Knights. But before they could leave to do so, Light suddenly shows up and he tells them they won't be going anywhere. Kaida recognizes Light as the guy who called him out for skipping the line when he first came into the dungeon. But he doesn't understand how a human could possibly sneak up on him like this when he's 1,500. Light is saddened to see Jimra and Wardy lying lifeless on the ground, and it is already too late to save them. So he closes their eyes and apologizes for not getting here sooner. Gold then grabs Ilio's body, and he seems to have some life left in him, so Light might still be able to save him. He casts healing magic on Ilio, and then turns back to ask Kato why he would do something like this. Scratch that, he doesn't care what self-centered reason they may have because they made his friends suffer, and he swears on his name that he will make them suffer pain so unbearable that they will beg for the sweet release of death. Light asks Nimiyumu and Gold to stay out of this because he wants to handle it on his own, and Ko is offended that Light seems to think he can defeat him alone. He is sick of insignificant humans defying him all the time, even though he is vastly superior. So, he says he will take his sweet time torturing Light before killing him, but after launching his first strike, Light is easily able to stop it with his staff. And he is a little disappointed in Kyo, because he was expecting more power from him. He loses his after Light nearly knocks him out with his staff, and decides to use his sword's full power to take him out. But despite dozens of blades, clothes being shot at Light, he's easily able to counter them all with some ice magic, leaving Kyo in utter disbelief. He begins throwing a temper tantrum because he can't accept that a human is actually better than him, and he starts talking about how, with the great sword of the ancient Maestro, he shouldn't be losing like this. Light honestly wasn't paying much attention, but as soon as he heard Kyo mention in Maestro, he becomes invested because this is the kind of information he's been looking for. Light asks how Kyum knows about Maestros, but he laughs and says there's no way he wouldn't know about it. After all, he was born with the blood of a Maestro. This was the end of episode 6. Subscribe to not miss the next. The episode begins with Kaido reveals that he was born with the blood of a master. He claims that he's vastly superior to humans since he's part master, but Light isn't sure what he means, so he tells his companions that he has decided to take Kaido and Yannick to the Abyss so that he can get answers from them. Mimu and Gold prepare to capture Yannick, who explains that he doesn't know how to fight, but his servants transform into Chimius. He reveals that he's been experimenting on human-monster hybrids, and Light recognizes one of them, realizing it's Suvaline. Yannick thinks combining different species is the key to surpassing their growth limits, but notes that he needs multiple humans to create his masterpiece, which is why he's been hunting with Kaido. Light orders Nemu and Gold to put the Chimeas out of their misery, so they cut them down, but Yannick mentions that it isn't over, and his Chimeas instantly regenerate. Nemu and Gold struggle to take them down since their attacks are working. So, Yannick tells them to give up, but they decide to get serious and unleash their powers. They attack the Chimeas with their special skills, and Yannick thinks it isn't enough to kill them, but he realizes that they're no longer regenerating, so he starts to panic, but Naima suddenly kicks him in the nuts and he passes out from the pain. Light overwhelms Kaido with his eyes swords and asks him if he's too afraid to continue their fight, which makes him remember how Elio called him a loser. He's angry that humans are looking down on him, and he's determined to prove them wrong, so he unleashes Grandius's ultimate form. He uses it to attack Light, but he jumps away and realizes that the Grandius is like a magic whip. He admits that it's flashy, but tells Kaido it isn't enough to defeat him. So he becomes furious and notes that Light won't survive if it hits him, but he stops moving and tells Kaido to bring it on. So he unleashes his weapon's full power and swings it with all his might, but his attack has no effect, and Light tells him to keep going. So he starts swinging wildly, but Light parries his attack and kicks him away, telling him he won't kill him yet since he still has questions for him. Kaido begs for mercy, but Light tells him he's pathetic, and notes that he doesn't deserve to be called a hero, since true heroes never give up and fight against the odds. Light gives him one last chance to prove himself and promises to spare Kaido if he manages to scratch him, but he panics and starts running away. So, Light uses his solar ray to him, and Kaido squirms in pain while Light tells him that Mia was right about him since he isn't a real hero. Light decides to bury Gimra and Wordy in the abyss since the area is infested with monsters, but Kaido and Yannick wonder what will happen to them. So, Light tells them they're coming with him. He uses his teleportation spell to take everyone to the throne room and tells Kaido and Yannick there in the deepest part of the abyss, but they wonder why he brought them there. So, Nami reveals that he lives there, and they can't believe he's staying in the world's most dangerous dungeon, but she tells them to stop talking. The girls welcome Light and ask him about Kaido and Yannick, so he reveals that they're criminals who murdered people for their experiments. But he notes that he brought them there since they know something about the Masters, and the girls look forward to interrogating them. But he tells the girls not to kill them until he learns everything they know, and orders Nu to help him bury Gimra and Wordy. They start begging for mercy again, but he reminds them that they made their victims suffer, telling them they don't deserve mercy because of the way they treated them. After that, Mia wakes up in a hotel, and Light tells her that his party ran into her while they were looking for the adventurer killer. She wonders what happened to the boys, so he reveals that they were able to save Elio, but Gimra and Wordy didn't make it. He notes that he couldn't bring their bodies back, but he gives her their hair, and she cries as she thanks him for everything he's done for her. The next day, Light returns to the guild where the receptionist mentions that they're promoting him to C-class. He notes that he wasn't able to capture the adventurer killer, but she tells him it's okay, since he gave the guild information about Kaido and Yannick and even saved 2 potential victims. That evening, Ayo tells Light that he's leaving with Mia tomorrow, and he asks them about their plans, so they reveal that they will quit adventuring and return to their hometown. He tells them they can find other adventurers to join their party, but they explain that they don't want to form a new party without Gimra and Wordy. And Elia notes that he wants to take them back to their home. Mia mentions that she'll give up enrolling in the academy and study magic herself, telling Light she'll do anything it takes to become a proper mage. After the siblings leave, Light looks forward to seeing them again, and he thinks about taking them to Gimra and Word's graves when he can finally share the truth. He orders Namu and Gold to hold down the fort while he returns to the abyss, where Mei shows him the results of their investigation. Ellie reveals that she used her forbidden magic to read the criminals' minds, and notes that since Kaido was a descendant of a master, he had the ability to level up faster. Mei adds that there's a rumor that the world will end if the master is left unchecked, but Light wonders if it's true. Ellie notes that she learned about it through Kaido's conversation with the captain of the White Knights, so Light thinks they need to look into him. She shows him how Kaido and Yannick are doing, and he thinks it's time to get rid of them. So he uses a card which summons monsters that eat them alive. He asks Ellie for an update about the revenge plan, so she notes that they're ready to make their move against Sasha, telling him they can start by capturing the White Knights. Ellie reveals that their vice captain is engaged to Sasha, so he'll be useful as a hostage, and Light tells her it's time to execute their plan. Meanwhile, we see Sasha with her fiancé Mail, who reveals that he's wiped out human villages before, and he notes that he enjoys seeing them beg for their lives. Sasha tells him how she also enjoyed it when she shot Light, and they think they're the perfect match since they're both evil. But Light looks forward to seeing her again so that he can ruin her life. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. The episode begins with Sasha returns home with her maid, and along the way, the maid comments on how good they look as a couple. However, their path is soon blocked when a human slave drops a bunch of food on the road because an elf started whipping him for no reason. And the only thing Sasha can think of right now is how useless all humans are. It's gonna take a while to move all the food out of the road, so she stares out the window in boredom while she waits. But that's when she sees a familiar silhouette walking down the alleyway. Sheer dread takes hold of her as she darts out of her carriage to make sure that wasn't really Light. But after searching the entire alley, she finds no sign of him. So she starts trying to convince herself that there's no way that could have been Light because he died years ago. However, as she turns around, she finds a note stuck to the wall telling her to come to the giant tower, and it was signed by Light, so she starts freaking out. Her maid soon comes running to check on her and finds Sasha on the ground in despair, because if Light really is alive, then she's going to lose everything she gained from killing him, including all to reward money, her noble status, and even her engagement to Miko. Meanwhile, from a nearby rooftop, Light and Ellie watch Sasha panicking on the floor. And this is a nice start to Light's revenge, but Ellie has much worse in store for Sasha. But she's not the only one with a heavy dose of karma heading their way, because over in the White Knight camp, 2 of the knights, Naya and Kia, are having the time of their lives, fermenting a human slave by using him as a human dartboard. And while that's going on, Charette over here is shoving his face deep in the chest of his human slave, and she is forced to play along because she doesn't want to end up as the next dartboard. This meeting was called to discuss the fact that after Kyo disappeared with the Holy Sword Grandius, he apparently went around killing adventurers and was defeated by a human. So, the higher-ups want them to go in and clean up his mess. Sheriffit doesn't understand why they should have to deal with the problem that Kyo created. But Musk gets up and reminds him that Kyo was one of their members, so they are directly responsible for anything he does. While Sherritt is still busy fraternizing, the screams of the man getting tortured are starting to annoy him. So he tells Nia and Kia to cut it out already and just kill him. Tannen. So, number 1, killing a creature that already dies. Okay, killing a creature that already dies and just kill him, but they refuse because they are having a lot of fun. They bought the slave with their own money, so they should have the right to do whatever they want with him. And they find it way more disturbing that Charlotte enjoys making out with humans so much. Muzz tells everyone to stop arguing so much, because they are White Knight. And personally, he believes that it is his duty to give humans a swift and fleeting death, so they don't have to suffer through their pathetic lives. but they don't agree with his ideology at all. Throughout this whole squabble, the Knight Captain has been trying to keep his cool. But the others are really getting on his nerves now. So he tells them to be quiet, and the anger in his voice carries so much weight that it literally has all of them quaking in fear and even give a bird a heart attack. Now that they are all quiet, he tells Naha and Kay that it's bad form to torment their victims so much. So he tells Sharfit to put the poor guy out of his misery. Sharfit obeys the captain's command and points a finger at the man, and in an instant his head is blown clean off his body. The captain then tells Nia and Kaya to get rid of the corpse, and the woman on Charlotte's lap is terrified by what just happened, but he tells her there's no need to worry because he'd never do that to her. He then says she is free to leave now. So she gets up and takes her leave. And once she's gone, the captain tells Sharfit that he is free to have whatever hobbies he chooses, but he should limit his fraternizing with humans. Elves are known for mating with human masters to create sub-masters so he can go thinning out the bloodline with his affair. However, Shara tells the captain there's nothing to worry about, because he was never actually going to have a child with his slave in the first place. In fact, he has gotten pretty bored of her, so he was thinking of shooting her in the back later. And he invites the captain to join in on the fun, but he declines because while he doesn't like humans, he doesn't particularly enjoy torturing them either. For now, his only priority is to deal with the situation regarding Kyo, because he can't let anyone embarrass their queen. Later that night, Sasha is laying in bed when all of a sudden she hears a loud noise, and when she goes to look out of her window, she finds a giant tower emerging from the forest. And the sight of it sends chills down her spine, because she recalls that Light's letter told her to meet him at a tower. And this must be what it was referring to. The next morning, a slave trader is driving into town with a wagon full of human children. But all of a sudden, a rock chimera appears out of nowhere, and the slave trader is terrified for his life. So he runs away, leaving the kids to their fate. That the monster doesn't actually seem interested in hurting them. A little while later, the elves in the city have started experiencing a shortage in food supply, because all the trade routes are infested with monsters. Now, the elves think it has something to do with the giant tower that randomly appeared recently. And the nation is apparently investigating it, but they are short-handed at the moment. So they are offering adventurers good money for any information on it. Light, Gold, and Nimu are also in the crowd. Adventurers. And after a few minutes, a pair of elves notice Nimumu, and even though she's human, they think she's hot. So they walk over and try to convince her to ditch Light and join their party instead. Namu restrains herself and simply tells the two to get lost because Light is the only one she will ever serve. And Light tells them they had better give up while they still can. But the elves get offended that a human would dare to reject them, so one of them throws a punch. However, Light casts a lightning arrow to force him back, and as soon as everyone realizes what just happened, they recognize him and the others as the new party of humans from Dagas, who are apparently extremely powerful. Knowing that they can't beat Light, the elves back off. And Light is pleased with how this turned out, because news of his presence in the elf nation is bound to spread now. Meanwhile, out in the forest, a group of elf adventurers decided to take on the quest to gather information about the giant tower. But to be safe, they forced a little human girl to come with them so they can use her as a diversion if they get attacked. After all, the only thing human slaves are good for is to act as bait. And when the girl falls to the ground because she's too exhausted to move, the elves threaten to beat her senseless until she gets back on her feet. They start complaining amongst themselves about how lazy the livestock is, but all of a sudden, one of them notices a drop of saliva land on his hand, and in the next moment, his head is completely chomped off by the rock chimera. The chimera then takes a bite out of the other elves, and the little girl falls to her knees in terror because she thinks she's going to be next. But as the monster approaches and takes a whiff of her, it realizes she is a human, so it backs off and walks away. The girl breathes a sigh of relief because she thinks she is finally safe. But just then, a group of scary-looking men come out of the woods and start talking about how lucky they are to find one out here. The girl is on the brink of crying because she thinks she's about to be enslaved again. But to her surprise, the men dump a bottle of healing potion on her and start talking about getting her a set of proper clothes and some food. It turns out that they are actually part of Light's team, and they were tasked with rescuing as many human slaves as they can. So the leader of the group contacts Yuki to organize a drop-off at the secure location. Meanwhile, up on the tower, Uki is hard at work controlling all the monsters in the area to make sure they only target the elves that are harming humans, when all of a sudden, Ellie comes over to check on her. She asks Uki how she's holding up, since this is the first time she has had to control so many monsters on the surface at once, but she says she's doing fine. Still, Ellie is worried that there might be issues with the mission, or that this might all be a test from Light to see how they handle moral dilemmas. But Uki tells her she's overthinking it, because everything has gone according to plan so far. Just then, she gets a message from the ground team, and they tell her they are ready to make the drop-off. So once they arrive at the village, they leave the girl in the care of the village, so she should be safe from now on, and she is very grateful for all they have done for her. As they are returning to their base, they start talking about how awful it is that humans are being used as monster bait. And they wonder why the other races even hate humans so much in the first place, but they can't come up with any real answers. Their leader tells them there's no point in pondering it now because they'll be leaving bright and early tomorrow morning, so they had better not be late. That night, Sasha is sitting in her room, grinding her teeth over the fact that she can't get to the tower alone because there are monsters over level 1000 in there. At this rate, it won't be long before the nation officially mobilizes the White Knights. And if they make it to the tower before her, they are going to find out that she didn't actually kill Light, and she can't let that happen. So, She needs to figure out a way to make it over there, so she can finally finish Light off with her own hands. The next morning, the Elven Council holds a meeting to discuss what to do about the recent rise in monsters. And since they aren't fully aware of what the monsters are capable of, one of the officials suggests that they should send in their best forces before any harm befalls the citizens. And she asks the White Knight captain what he thinks about the plan. Hardy says he is aware how important it is that they keep their citizens safe, but he can't agree with such an idiotic plan. Sending the White Knights out with no clear intel would be like using a fine sword to poke through the mud. And no matter how good a sword is, it remains useless if you don't know where to strike. The Queen sides with Hardy on this matter, and decided that the best course of action would be to increase the reward for information on the tower. And once they have gathered sufficient intel from the adventurers, they will dispatch the White Knights. No one can go against the Queen's orders, so the meeting is concluded. But the Chancellor seems to be holding a grudge, because he thinks the only reason the Queen sided with Hardy is due to the fact that she's his mother. Later on, Hardy heads to his mother's chambers to thank her for supporting him, because now he and his men won't have to go out and do the dirty work in person. His mother laughs and says she'd never let her precious son be out in any serious danger, but the mystery of the giant tower is a pressing issue, so they will need to deal with it soon. He asks if she thinks this might be the coming of another Dark Lord, but that's not necessarily what the Queen is worried about. If a Dark Lord is born, then that would mean a hero would be born from the heroes as well, and they are likely to be a master. So, if that's the case, the elves are going to need to either win them over or kill them to avoid being destroyed. Speaking of which, Hardy recalls hearing about a potential master a few years back, but the Queen says the boy turned out to be regular, so he was apparently disposed of. She asks why he's so interested, but Hardy says he was just thinking about how he would have loved to be a part of that mission, because he thinks all humans are pests who deserve to be eliminated. The next morning, the guild posts even more quests for information on the giant tower, and a ton of adventurers show up, including Light and the others. But while they're walking, Sasha happens to pass by, and she recognizes Light's voice. So she turns around and demands that he show her his face immediately. Light tries to play it cool and tells her that he is wearing a mask to cover burn marks on his face so he can't remove it. However, Sasha completely ignores him and smacks the mask right off his face. This was the end of episode 8. Subscribe to not miss the next part. While Light truly wanted to attack Sasha right then and there, doing so would ruin the grand revenge plan he had been preparing for years. Therefore, he remained calm and removed his hood, revealing terrifying scars covering his entire face. Sasha couldn't recognize Light due to those ghastly scars, and found the sight so repulsive that she screamed at him, claiming he was offending her eyes with such an ugly sight, even though she was the one who insisted on seeing him. After Sasha left, Light revealed that he hadn't actually burned himself to hide his identity. The marks on his face were merely an illusion created by a mask. He was pleased that the trick was effective enough to deceive Sasha and make her leave alone. However, as they entered the forest, it seemed the two elves Light had insulted earlier were still holding a grudge. Light noticed them trailing him, but since he had bigger problems to deal with, he decided to give them a chance and warned them to back off if they didn't want to die. The elves, thinking he was just bluffing and that it was impossible for a human to defeat them, continued the pursuit. Light initially chose to ignore them as they weren't worth his time. Shortly after, Light and the others arrived at the agreed-upon meeting point, but the rest of the group hadn't arrived yet, so it seemed they would have to wait a few minutes. Suddenly, the two elves managed to catch up. Light was genuinely impressed by their ability to keep pace with him up to this point, noting their persistence was admirable. Unfortunately, that was the only good thing about them. Light had given them a fair warning, yet they still wanted to fight, leaving him no other choice. He called out to May and asked her to handle them on his behalf. While this was happening, the elves didn't stop mocking Light, believing they would make him pay for his disrespect. However, the smiles were quickly wiped from their faces when May appeared, declaring it was too late to beg. Their fate was sealed the moment they began insulting Light. May then devoured the two elves completely. Afterward, Light apologized for wasting May's time on such a trivial matter, but May reassured him it was fine. For his sake, she was willing to devour 1,000 elves, even if they tasted bad. Shortly after, the rest of the group members arrived, and Light was happy to see them. He had summoned them to escort him through the forest to the tower, as flying was not an option due to the high number of adventurers in the area. Suzu led the group as they began walking toward the tower. Along the way, Gold expressed his happiness at seeing Jack again. However, he was surprised that Jack had gone to the trouble of coming, even though he wasn't obligated to. Jack explained that coming was mostly Ellie's idea, but he also didn't want to leave Light to handle all the difficult tasks alone. When they heard Jack address Light as Lightster, the girls immediately became hostile due to the lack of formality. But to Jack, they were being arrogant. Firstly, because Light hadn't asked them to be so formal with him, and secondly, if they continued distancing themselves from Light with excessive formality, he would end up alone on a pedestal surrounded only by servants instead of friends. If that was what they wanted for Light, Jack was ready to fight to knock some sense into them. However, before a brawl could break out, Light asked Jack to calm down, as he didn't want to cause trouble there. He said the same to the girls, returning things to normal as they continued walking toward the tower. Tension remained high at first, but ultimately there was no real ill will among everyone, so the situation calmed down quickly. Nevertheless, Light wasn't sure what Suzu was thinking. Suzu was so shy that they couldn't speak to anyone except mascot Luke, whom they trusted. Sadly, Light had many questions about Suzu, such as the fact that their card listed them as androgynous, so Light wasn't sure if Suzu was male or female, and he couldn't check for himself. He had to rely on assumptions. Finally, the group arrived. In Light's opinion, Ellie had done a magnificent job building the tower. It looked terrifying and majestic up close. The quartet immediately came down to greet Light. Now that they were all gathered, Ellie opened the entrance to show him the entire place. She had built the tower using information obtained from analyzing the Abyss dungeon core. It was fully reinforced, so there was no risk of any physical or magical interference from the outside. She also had a new pet, a dragon she brought to assist with the revenge plan. As requested, the top floor had been converted into a wedding hall for the grand finale. Light approached the throne Ellie had made for him. Since everyone was present, Ellie asked Light for permission to use the opportunity to explain the plan's details to everyone, and Light had no issue with that. So she began explaining that Light intended to execute his revenge on the same day Sasha was to marry into the royal family. However, she had made some adjustments to avoid unwanted wedding crashers. Hearing this for the first time, Light asked Ellie what she had changed. Ellie explained that since the White Knights are known as the kingdom's strongest warriors, they would certainly try to interfere with Light's plan. Therefore, she devised a way to fight and defeat them early. In this way, they would test their military strength against the Elf Kingdom's strongest forces. Simultaneously, once the White Knights were defeated, it would be easier to subdue the Elf Nation and obtain information about the Masters. Light agreed that Ellie's addition to the plan was a huge help, and furthermore, once they took control of the Elf Nation, they would be able to investigate other nations more easily using the tower as a base of operations. To prevent suspicion, Ellie also created a shadow clone of Light to perform his duties as an adventurer while the real Light was busy with his revenge. Light was impressed by the depth of thought Ellie had put into this. While they were talking, Aoi was controlling some monsters to herd Sasha toward the tower. In the forest, we see Sasha and the group of elves she hired as guards, hiding in the bushes, knowing they stood no chance against the monsters in this place. While trying hard to avoid detection, they were gradually shepherded toward the tower itself. Upon arrival, they were greeted by Ellie's new pet, as expected. Sasha arrived right near the tower. When she saw the dragon, she was terrified and immediately turned around, knowing she couldn't face such a monster alone. The only ones capable of defeating it were the White Knights. However, she hesitated to summon them because she didn't want them to know about the possibility that Light was still alive. From the top of the tower, everyone watched Sasha leaving. But Ellie was certain she would return with the White Knights because she had no other choice. When that happened, the White Knights would be forced to face the strongest warriors of the Abyss, and Ellie was confident Light would enjoy that. In the evening, Sasha held a meeting with the Elf Council to inform them of what she had seen while trying to reach the tower earlier. Not only were there monsters roaming the forest stronger than any ordinary elf, but she also saw a dragon resting near the tower itself. This caught the Queen's attention, as she couldn't imagine a creature of such power appearing there. The Queen found it hard to believe, but Sasha insisted it was the truth. In fact, the Chancellor had received a similar report from a human group, stating the same thing Sasha had said. If two different groups were reporting the same information, it was likely true. Now that the report's credibility was confirmed, the Chancellor asked Hardy what he intended to do. Since they had enough information about what they were facing, there was no reason for Hardy to avoid mobilizing the White Knights, and he was forced to agree, as he had no way out. So he stood up and announced that he would lead the campaign to defeat the terrifying monsters and uncover the mystery of the tower. Shortly after, Sasha met with the Chancellor to ask permission to join the White Knights' mission, claiming she only wanted to help for the safety of the Elf Nation. But the Chancellor told her she didn't need to beg, as he was already planning to include her. After all, it would be a great boost to her image, especially when she married Michael. However, there was one condition. Sasha had to borrow an artifact from her father's collection, because without it, she would just be a burden on the White Knights. Sasha agreed, and that night she met her father to ask for the favor. The next day, she headed to the edge of the forest to meet the White Knights. Most of the White Knights didn't understand why they needed to bring Sasha on such a mission, but Michael assured them that Sasha was capable of protecting herself, and if anything happened, he was there to protect her. The ninja and the others believed the only reason Sasha was allowed to join was the Chancellor's closeness to Michael. However, she wasn't completely useless, as she was the only one who knew the correct path to the tower. So they needed her to lead the way. At the tower, Light was watching the approach of Sasha and the White Knights. He was practically trembling with excitement. He would finally be able to execute his revenge, and he couldn't wait to see Sasha's terrified reaction when she saw him. As Sasha and the Knights walked through the forest, they asked her if she was sure they were taking the right path. Sasha said she was certain, because she had left a mark on the trees the last time she passed through. Indeed, she saw one of the marks ahead, but as she approached to examine it, she tripped on some roots and fell, but Michael caught her immediately. He had her in his arms, her body warm, her feet numb. He told her he understood her eagerness to reach the castle, but he didn't want her to get hurt, so she had to be careful. Eventually, they arrived at the tower. It was as impressive as they had expected. There, Michael praised Sasha for skillfully leading them there. But suddenly, the tower doors opened, and numerous rock monsters emerged. Although the White Knights were able to gradually reduce their numbers, Hardy thought it was too dangerous, so he insisted on waiting for the decoy they had paid the adventurers for. Shortly after, someone set off fireworks in the forest, alerting the monsters and causing them to leave to investigate the source of the noise. Now the only monster remaining was the dragon inside, so Hardy announced they would enter and used his special silence spell. This spell is unique because it nullifies all sounds within its range, creating a zone of total silence so they could move without being detected. However, as they were running, they suddenly fell into a teleportation trap. In an instant, they were separated and ended up in different rooms of the tower. Imagine being cast out by your tribe, betrayed by everyone you trusted. You barely escape with your life, only to fall into the deepest place in the world, the Abyss. Surrounded by deadly monsters, you unleash your last magic, and suddenly a level 99 warrior appears before you. From that moment, the legend of your revenge against the traitors begins. Hardy stays calm and composed, making sure that he doesn't miss anything, which confuses Naz a little. She wonders whether Hardy is hard of hearing and shouts out again that she is the strongest here and will fight him. Hardy calmly looks at her and replies that he hears her well, asking whether she is an enemy of his. Naz smiles and replies that she is indeed an enemy of his, since her master doesn't like the White Knights and wants to get rid of them. Hardy maintains his composure and analyzes the situation. He notices that even though Naz looks young, she is not someone to be taken lightly. And if she is so devoted to her master, that would mean that her master is even stronger than her. He slowly takes out his sword, thinking that it doesn't really matter whether her master is stronger than her, though, because no one is stronger than him. Naz simply smiles and calls him forward so that they can have a good battle before she beats him and drags him to her master. Hardy stands and checks her armor keenly, realizing that it is infused with magic at a lot of points. Even the greatsword, which should be incredibly heavy, seems like nothing in her hand as she swings it around like a small stick. It's clear that Naz has inhuman strength, but he must test her to know the limits of this strength. Naz, being the impatient girl she is, decides to go with the first move since Hardy is being too slow. So she tells him to get his guard up, and with that, she swings her sword to create a massive shockwave towards Hardy. The shockwave is so strong that it shatters Hardy's sword cleanly in half and cuts him across the body before blasting the wall behind him completely open. Hardy goes into a shocked state and simply slumps over to the ground, unable to believe what just happened as the walls behind him crumble. Naz is scared as hell and immediately goes on to check whether Hardy is alive or not, worried that she might get scolded if the man dies. Ellie's voice comes booming as she scolds Naz for breaking the walls to her tower. Naz immediately tries to cover her mistakes, claiming that it's just a scratch and that the wall is perfectly fine. Light simply smiles as Ellie tells Naz that she made the walls of this floor twice as strong as any other because of her, but she even managed to break through this, which now she will have to repair using her Naz apologizes once again, promising that this won't happen again. When she hears a small whisper coming from Hardy, she turns around and notices that he starts using a healing spell on himself and stands up once again with his broken sword in his hand. Ellie warns Naz to go easy this time and not to cause any more destruction. Naz promises to be more careful this time and turns towards Hardy, who apologizes to her for not taking her seriously enough and promises that he will now treat her as a proper opponent and give his all. With that, he pulls out a move from Jujutsu Kaisen and uses domain expansion on Naz, causing her to get entrapped in a soundless barrier, making everything around her quiet. Hardy knows that his barrier not only gives him a great advantage but also saps out the abilities of his opponents, and uses that to fuel his own strength by multiple times. With that, his body floods with energy, and he uses his mana to create a magical blade, which is more or less transparent, making it difficult for his opponent to defend against. Naz is a bit surprised at this, as she has never seen anything like this ever before. Hardy knows that he must have caught her off guard since this is his most powerful move, which he usually never has to use. He suddenly notices that Naz has put her sword back in her shield and gets ready for a fist fight, which confuses Hardy at first, but then he thinks that Naz probably can't understand the type of sword he is using and is trying to go for hand-to-hand combat. He gets confident in his strategy, knowing that Naz is not that experienced and will probably rush in for an attack, and that's when he will chop her cleanly in two. Even though he was correct about the first part, he couldn't even fathom the speed of Naz when she appeared in front of him. And even before he could blink, she landed a devastating punch, blasting him straight into the wall. Naz gets incredibly happy that this time, the wall didn't break. The only reason she put away her sword was so that she could control her strength. Ellie still scolds her for leaving such a big crater in the wall, which now she has to fix, and tells her to quickly get Hardy and return back to the top of the tower. Light looks at Ellie and asks whether she is okay, since keeping up a tower this big must consume a lot of energy. Ellie replies that she gets weak in the knees sometimes, but she can hold it for much longer if she wants to. Light thanks her, claiming that it won't be necessary since their guests seem to be at the gate itself. Right on cue, Light opens the door and finds Sasha and Miki standing behind it. Light greets Sasha, and Sasha immediately recognizes him as the boy she saw in the market who had a burnt face. Miki asks whether Sasha knows him, and Sasha replies that she has only met him once in the market. Sasha gets annoyed and tells Light to control his tongue, as he is just a human and should immediately bring them refreshments. Light smiles, replying that he liked her much better when she was nice to him. Sasha makes a confused face, claiming that she will never be nice to a piece of __human. Light slowly takes off his mask, and soon, Sasha's voice gets stuck in her throat. Light claims that it has been 3 years since they last met on good terms. But Sasha is too shaken to speak, claiming that this is impossible, and asks what happened to all the scars she saw. Light smiles, claiming that those scars were just an illusion and he has stopped his own aging so he could remember the people who wronged him better. She can't believe her own ears when Mikhail asks Sasha whether this boy is the same one she was tasked with killing, the one who was supposed to be a probable master candidate. Sasha is still dumbstruck, but he finally reveals that when they attacked him, he ended up accidentally triggering a teleportation trap and was sent to the lowest level of the abyss. There, he somehow survived and has been planning for the past 3 years to exact his revenge on everyone who wronged him. Sasha doesn't know what to say, but Mikhail suddenly starts laughing, claiming that this was the best wedding gift he could have hoped for and luck must really be on their side today. Sasha is confused, asking what he is talking about, But Mikhail explains that when they kill the mastermind which threatened the kingdom with a dragon and retrieve the technology that built this magnificent tower, they will gain untold influence over the kingdom and loads of riches and title. Sasha asks, what if they learn about the fact that she lied about killing Light personally and making sure that he was dead? Mickey replies that they will follow the YouTuber strategy, that after doing something wrong, just refuse to address it and everything will be okay. This fills her with confidence, and she claims that Mikhail is a genius. She turns towards Light and starts cussing him out, claiming that a filthy human like him would be crushed beneath their feet like an insect from a filthy bog. Light doesn't reply to her, and simply gets up and picks up his staff, before telling Ellie and the furry not to intervene no matter what. He walks up to the couple and tells Sasha that he will celebrate their marriage by his own revenge. But Sasha simply laughs, claiming that she is even stronger than she was before and has surpassed level 500. Moreover, she takes out a golden musical instrument, which Light recognizes as a legendary class device. Sasha starts playing the flute, and immediately a bunch of magic circles appear beneath them, and two huge deities emerge from it. The angelic beings are phantasmic-class summons, whatever the hell that means, and the angel man immediately attacks Light. Light dodges the attack without any issue, before turning back for a counterattack. The angel man realizes that he is in trouble, and immediately engages his shield, but it's not strong enough to stop Light, and he breaks through the shield, even taking an arm down. He comes back to the floor, thinking about how he wanted to kill the summon with just one attack. But it seems like he will have to put on a show. Sasha is horrified at what Light was just able to do, since he is supposed to be a mere level 15 human. Light smiles at that, and claims that he forgot to mention. But he himself has gotten a little stronger than he was earlier, and reveals his stats. Sasha is shocked to see that Light is level 99, and starts freaking out. But Miki remains calm, claiming that she shouldn't fall for his obvious lies because level 99 is nothing more than a fantasy, and his previous strike was merely enabled by some special magical item. Sasha is the most gullible and delusional there is, and immediately believes in Miki, telling her angels to take out Light as soon as possible. Light decides to prove his levels and starts releasing one spell after the other, first using Dust Devil to blind them, then using Shadowbind to stop them in place, followed by Ice Shard to stop the magical healing, and Fire Arrows to deal an incredible amount of damage. To his surprise though, Sasha manages to resummon them immediately without an issue, and claims that she can do that as many times as she wants without really using that much magic. Light realizes that these angels are more troublesome than he initially thought. So he decides to go straight to the source. Within an instant, he appears in front of Sasha and tries to land a brutal blow, but he gets blocked by Mick, who tells him to keep his filthy hands off the girl. Light claims that he is surprised that Mikhail's shield could block an attack by him, but Mikhail simply smiles, claiming it can do more than just block. Just then, an immense amount of energy releases from the shield, pushing Light back. Light wonders whether that was a magic attack or just a shield bash. Mikhail laughs at his confusion, claiming that his shield is a holy item which blocks the attacks of all the sinners and reflects it back at them. But that's not it, as he can also increase the stats of his allies by a lot. Suddenly, the angels start looking like they are on hella steroids. Sasha laughs, claiming that she can keep summoning the angels, and Mickey can defend her and boost the angels, which means that Light has no more options but to surrender immediately. Light starts laughing like a maniac, claiming that now is the time when he will show them what true despair looks like. With that, he starts chanting a spell, which scares even Ellie and the furry, who tell him not to use that ability. But Light doesn't care. He releases all the seals over his own magic and summons the demon-class weapon Gungnir, whose aura is so strong that Miki and Sasha damn near piss their pants. Mick immediately realizes that this is bad news and tells Sasha to attack him. Sasha sends her angels on him, but the moment the angel touches him, its sword shatters, and no healing magic is able to bring it back. Light keeps walking forward so the tanky angel takes out his shield, but Light simply uses a light thrust with his spear to completely evaporate all the angels without breaking a sweat. He continues walking but realizes that the power of this weapon is hurting his hand as well, but he decides that he is willing to sacrifice an arm or two if that means showing these elves what true despair looks like. Sasha is beyond terrified and immediately summons an archangel, which is bigger and stronger than all the others combined. The archangel immediately uses one of his strongest spells. While Sasha laughs, claiming that there is no way Light can survive that, Light doesn't even defend against it, as the magic completely nullifies once it reaches him. Sasha is horrified and shouts at the angel to repeat the magic, but no matter how many times the archangel repeated the spell, it was of no use as Light kept walking forward without even trying to defend himself. He laughs at Sasha's despair, telling her to try everything she wants, but no matter what happens, she is going to die at his hands tonight, and not even God can save her. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Our final episode begins with Sasha and her fiancé Michael still in shock from Light's magical energy. Sasha orders the head of the magical guard to use his strongest power, and he creates a shield to block Light's attack. Light looks at the head of the guard with complete confidence and says, "It seems you haven't learned," and immediately breaks the magical shield with one powerful strike. Michael immediately orders Sasha to use the magical instrument again to summon the guards after they were destroyed. When she tries to play the magical instrument again, she is surprised that the magical guards are not being summoned, and feels that something is wrong. Sasha is shocked to see the magical instrument in her hands being destroyed. Light laughs and tells her that he used his magical power to prevent this magical tool from regenerating ever again. Michael asks him, "Who are you? Are you a demon or what? And how are you able to use magical energy to destroy our rare magical instrument?" Light immediately pulls out his magical spear and tells them that he possesses immense magical energy capable of destroying anything in its path. Michael doesn't believe him and starts laughing, saying, "It seems you've been playing us. First you told us you were from the 9999 class, and now you say you have a very rare magical spear that can destroy anything." Sasha tells him that his last attack was just a stroke of luck and nothing more, and that a pathetic brat like him could never defeat them. Michael immediately brings out his magical shield and says that the shield he inherited from his family can block any attack regardless of its strength. Light laughs and says, "All right, let's try it," and immediately uses his magical power to attack Michael with all his strength, saying, "Let's see if your shield can withstand my great power or not." Light succeeds in breaking Michael's magical shield and sends them flying away. Poor Michael lies on the ground saying it's impossible for a human to possess all this magical power, and asks Light, "Who are you? Identify yourself." Light tells him that he is now looking for the Maestro and wants to know the extent of his power. Michael refuses to give him any information about the Maestro, saying that someone like him poses a threat to the Elf Kingdom and must be eliminated. Sasha then gets up, and Michael checks on her to make sure she is fine. He tells her that they must flee now and look for another opportunity to take revenge. He pulls a strange magical feather from his pocket and begins to say a spell to activate it, but he is surprised that his spell isn't working. He tries to activate it multiple times, but it doesn't work at all, and Light keeps looking at him and laughing. Light then tells him that his spell won't work because the entire tower is surrounded and a powerful spell has been activated that prevents the use of magic. Michael still doesn't believe him and says there is no spell in the world that can prevent teleportation magic. Light feels that Michael is stupid and calls Ellie, asking her to explain to this fool why his spell won't work. She tells him that normally no spell can prevent teleportation, but the spell she used on the tower is one of her own creations, and no one has been able to find a solution for it until now. She tells Light that she worked very hard to activate this spell. Michael and Sasha hear this and are in complete disbelief. Light then asks him, "What do you plan to do now?" Michael tells him not to get ahead of himself, because his end will be at the hands of the White Knights, who must be looking for them now and will come to help and dispose of him. He tells him that their leader, Hardy, has a magical power exceeding 3,000, meaning there is no chance for Light to defeat him. Poor Michael doesn't know what Nazuna did to Hardy, and that she finished him off with a single blow. Light laughs at him and tells him to stay in his delusions. Then he orders the door to be opened. As soon as the door opens, all of Light's assistants enter carrying the bodies of the White Knights, headed by Hardy, who received a proper beating. Michael and Sasha literally stand there with their mouths open, unable to believe that all the leaders have been defeated and are now thrown on the ground before them. They notice then that Light's hand is burned due to the massive magical power in the spear, but Light reassures them and says, "Don't worry about me, I'm fine." Light approaches Michael and Sasha and asks, "So, what were you planning to do a moment ago?" Michael immediately backs down and says, "Look boss, I have a great plan. Why don't we unite and together we can rule the whole world?" Sasha doesn't believe the strange things Michael is saying. Michael tells Light that he possesses great magical power, and if he cooperates with them, he can achieve anything he desires. Light looks at him in surprise and says, "Do you think I care about power and ruling? All I want is to take revenge on you and reveal the truth to everyone." Michael then says, "In that case, I will confess everything to you," claiming he had nothing to do with any plan to kill him and knows nothing about the matter at all. Sasha feels that he is betraying her and trying to save himself this way. She asks him, "What nonsense are you talking about?" And he immediately turns on her. The love between them disappears in an instant, and he says to her, "Who are you? I don't know you. You are just a whore and completely worthless," and tells Light, "Go ahead, boss. Finish her off, she's not worth 3 pounds. But Light says, "Don't worry, I won't kill you with my own hands," and calls Ellie, telling her, "You come and finish them off." Ellie is very happy, approaches them, and says she has been waiting for this moment for a long time. She tells them she will kill them slowly and make them suffer. Michael starts pleading with her, saying he knows her master is kind and would never allow them to die, and that he is ready to be their loyal servant, begging for forgiveness and his life. Ellie doesn't listen to him and keeps thinking of a way to dispose of them and torture them. At that moment, Michael seizes the opportunity and tries to escape. She immediately uses a very strange magic, producing many sharp tree branches that catch him and hang him in the air. She asks him, "What do you think of the pain you're feeling now?" He keeps begging for her to forgive him, but she approaches him and says he must be tortured before he dies, and she casts another spell on him until she finishes him off. Sasha is watching him, terrified, and looks like she has soiled herself. Light suddenly calls her, and she asks, "Are you going to kill me too? Have you forgotten what I did for you when everyone was bullying you and treating you badly?" He tells her that all of that was lies and deception, that they were only exploiting him, and that he saw her happy when he was being tortured and dying. She claims she is not to blame, and that Drago was the one who planned everything, and she couldn't object to his orders. She tells him, "I know, Light, that you loved me, and you should forgive me, and only take revenge on those who wanted to kill you." Suddenly, Yuki enters and stands before her, asking, "Are you never going to stop lying and deceiving?" She tells her she would be a fool to think Lord Light would believe her nonsense, and that she will let her animals eat her and enjoy her. But before she finishes her off, we see Light intervene, telling her, "Don't do anything to her and be a good girl." He tells Sasha, "I don't want you to be afraid. I won't kill you now because I still don't know the full truth. Until I know everything, I will leave you to suffer psychologically so you can live through what I lived through before." Before he leaves, he says there is something he forgot, pulls out the arrow she shot him with in the past, and shoots it into her leg to make her feel his pain. Then he calls Mira and tells her, "You know the rest, deal with her." Mira approaches her, brings out strange-looking insects, binds her, and they begin to eat her. Sasha keeps calling for Light and begging him, but Light ignores her and continues on his way. Suddenly, the pain intensifies for Light and he falls to the ground. Light is forced to cancel the spell so he doesn't get hurt further. Later, he goes back to his cell, and we see all his assistants worried about him and checking on his condition. Ellie says she is very worried about him because he used his strongest spell. She tells them that this spell gathers all their strength together at once, and Light had to seal this spell after using it so he wouldn't die. She tells them the important thing now is to pray for him to recover. We go to Light, and as soon as he opens his eyes, he finds May next to him. May immediately makes sure he is fine. Light apologizes to her for making them afraid and worried. When he tries to get up, she runs to him and tells him to stay seated as he is still tired. May tells him that he needs a long time to regain his strength. She starts reminding him of the first day she saw him, saying that when she saw the tears in his eyes for the first time, she felt how upset and sad he was, and that revenge was his priority, and he had been waiting for this moment for a long time to take his rights. She tells him she doesn't want this revenge to make him reckless and neglect himself because he is precious to them, and they want him. We return to the Elf Kingdom and see one of the guards speaking to the advisor, saying they have lost contact with all the White Knights. He can't believe it and doesn't know exactly where they are. The Queen is listening and says it's impossible for anything to happen to them, noting they have Hardy, the strongest knight in the kingdom. He tells her they haven't heard from them for 2 days, and the matter is extremely worrying. Suddenly, one of the guards enters and says, "Quick, a huge disaster! The dragons in the forest are attacking us now!" He tells them their numbers are very large. It's the first time they've seen them, and they don't know how to deal with them. We see May riding on one of the dragons on her way to the castle. The Queen is shocked by their large numbers and the fact that they have surrounded their palace. Suddenly, they hear a voice speaking to them. It is Ellie. She tells them she is the Witch of the Tower, and that about 2 days ago, intruders entered her tower, calling themselves the White Knights, wanting to meet her leader, but she did her duty with them. Suddenly, she orders the dragons to carry out an attack to scare the Queen, and gives them a 3-minute deadline to come out. We see her later in their palace, counting down the 3 minutes until the princess and the advisor come out. We see the Queen threatening her, saying her presence is not welcome, and what she did is a crime, and it's better for her to take her dragons and leave. Ellie asks her if she is a fool, saying, "Your knights are the ones who came to my tower, which is why I came to you." Ellie says she wants to know the reason they sent these knights to her and starts insulting them. The Queen is upset that she is insulting the White Knights. Ellie says they were probably coming to steal her treasures. The Queen says the White Knights are not thieves. Ellie says, "Let me check on that," and tells her she will now enter her mind to see if she is lying or not. As soon as she approaches them, the advisor orders the guards to attack Ellie to protect the Queen. As soon as the guards attack, she uses a magical spell, and trees emerge from underground and crush them all. She keeps grinding them down until the Queen finds herself surrounded by terrifying trees. Ellie approaches her and tells her that these trees are bloodsuckers and absorb the blood of her enemies. The Queen is very afraid and tries to escape, but Ellie uses a spell and trees catch her and bring her back. She begins to read her thoughts and says, "Indeed, you are not lying. The White Knights are not thieves. But I saw inside you a peak of malice and hatred for humans that is unnatural, and that made me very annoyed with you." She tells her she will let her live on the condition that she frees the humans who are enslaved, and if they harm humans again or try to exploit them, she will have her dragons eat them and destroy their entire kingdom. She announces before everyone that humans are now free and can live their lives normally. We return to Light and see May telling him that Ellie executed everything he asked of her, and now humans are free and no longer slaves. Light then goes out and reassures his assistants that he is fine. He goes out to check on the city and make sure the humans are living normally and not being enslaved. Light says he had promised to turn this world into ashes, but now his thinking has changed, and it is better to protect the world instead of destroying it. When he asks for his assistants' opinions, they tell him, "Boss, we are with you. Anything you want to destroy, we'll destroy it, and if you want to keep it, no problem at all." Light says that if it weren't for the help of his friends, he wouldn't have achieved his revenge or been able to do anything at all. And thus ends our summary of the first season of the story of the Avenger Light. If you enjoyed the story and want the episodes of the second season, which hasn't been released yet, don't forget to support us with a like and subscription so that as soon as the second season drops, you'll be the first to see it here.